This October, I will be prosecuted for one charge of, get this, being publicly discourteous or disrespectful to a commissioner or tribunal chair of the Alberta Human Rights Commission, and two charges that my, quote, public comments regarding the Alberta Human Rights Commission were inappropriate and unbecoming, and that such conduct is deserving of sanction, unquote. I'm being prosecuted under the Legal Profession Act because last year I wrote a newspaper editorial in the Sun newspapers calling Alberta's Human Rights Commission, quote, crazy. Have you ever heard of a journalist being prosecuted for being disrespectful towards a government agency before? A journalist in Canada, that is. I'm not talking about China or Russia. I've been through something like this before. You'll recall that in February of 2006, I was the publisher of the Western Standard magazine. We ran a news story on the Danish cartoons of Mohammed and the deadly Muslim riots that followed. Being a news magazine, we included photos of the cartoons to show the central element of the story. Muslim activists filed hate speech complaints against the magazine and against me personally for reporting this legitimate news story. What followed was straight out of Kafka, a 900-day investigation by no fewer than 15 government bureaucrats and lawyers for the thought crime of publishing news, quote, likely to expose a person to hatred or contempt. Truth was not a defense, journalism was not a defense. The Commission had invented a counterfeit human right not to be offended. I spent $100,000 on legal fees before the Commission finally dropped the charges against me because they were taking such a beating in the media. Even the provincial cabinet minister in charge of the Commission at the time, Lindsay Blackett, told reporters the Commission had become, quote, a kangaroo court. I guess he's allowed to say that, but I'm not. Over time, human rights commissions have gotten much more scrutiny, and the Federal Human Rights Commission even had its censorship powers repealed by Parliament. But last year, Alberta's Human Rights Commission stumbled back into the news. A Czech immigrant had failed Alberta's engineering exam 3 times. So he complained to the Commission that the exam was, quote, discriminatory. In a shocking ruling, they agreed and ordered Alberta's engineering profession to lower their exam standards and pay the complainer $10,000. I have an opinion about that. I think it's crazy. Now, you might have the same opinion. I'm a journalist and I haven't practiced law in many years. My job these days is to express my opinion. Sun News, Sun Media hired me as a journalist to express my opinion. That's what I did. But this time the Human Rights Commissions didn't come for me directly, but one of their prosecutors did. Armin Chak filed a complaint to the Law Society of Alberta about my column. Even though I haven't practiced law in years, I'm still a lawyer, and that was his angle. Now, at first the Law Society dismissed his complaint without even a hearing, as they do with other nuisance complaints filed against me over the years by my political opponents. It would be unprecedented to prosecute a journalist for having the wrong opinions about a government agency. Alberta benchers aren't always so fastidious about courtesy. I mean, earlier this year, Dennis Edney, Omar Khadr's lawyer, stood outside the Edmonton courthouse blaming Khadr's legal situation on the legal system's anti-Muslim bigotry. Take a look.
I was asked in Guantanamo a number of times, why is Canada not doing something for this young man? You'd have to ask Mr. Harper. My view is very clear. Mr. Harper is a bigot. Mr. Harper doesn't like Muslims. Mr. Harper, I once said publicly to Mr. Harper, when you put your children to bed, ask yourself whether you would like your children to have been abused like Omar Khadr.
But like Armin Chak, Dennis Edney is a Law Society bencher himself, and he is not being prosecuted for what he said, nor should he be. We need passionate lawyers zealously advocating for their clients, even if they're sometimes prickly. Since when is respecting the government more important than telling the truth or saying your honest opinion? To my knowledge, the decision to prosecute me is absolutely unprecedented. Unlike Dennis Edney and his courthouse remarks, I'm not even a practicing lawyer. I'm a journalist who happens to be trained in the law. There are tens of thousands of inactive lawyers like me in Canada. They include politicians like Peter MacKay and Thomas Mulcair. Sometimes these politician lawyers are polite, sometimes they're not. 2 years ago, my fellow member of the Law Society of Alberta, who was an opposition politician back then, her name is Rachel Notley, she compared the Alberta Energy Regulator to a banana republic. The Alberta Energy Regulator is a quasi-judicial tribunal, just like the Human Rights Commission is, but it would be unthinkable that the Law Society would have prosecuted her for being discourteous to a government agency. because we live in a democracy and we value public debate. Well, I do too. And I'm going to keep calling the Human Rights Commission crazy for the rest of my life. And the fact is that their old prosecutor is still trying to get me. And that is a little bit crazy, isn't it? This is just more lawfare against me by the grievance industry, the politically correct censors. Since I first spoke out against Human Rights Commission censorship, I have been hit with literally dozens of nuisance complaints and lawsuits. I know what their goal is, to burn up my time and my money and to make me lose my fighting spirit. Will you help me cover my legal bills? I've got a solid lawyer named Jim Rooney, and more important, I have the Charter of Rights and the Bill of Rights and the Magna Carta on my side, or as the great Prime Minister Wilfrid Laurier put it, Canada is free and freedom is its nationality. I'll fight hard. Jim Rooney will help make sure I fight smart. Can you please help me cover my legal bills? Lord knows how much it's going to cost. I hate to say it, it's probably going to cost $25,000. Depends on how many witnesses they're going to call against me. Can you believe that, witnesses? I wrote a newspaper column read by thousands of people calling the Human Rights Commission crazy, and we're actually going to have a trial on that matter, probably with witnesses. If I were a left-wing journalist and I had criticized, say, Stephen Harper and his anti-terrorism bill, C-51, and then a law society decided to prosecute me for being disrespectful of some conservative law or commission, I'd be a national hero to the media party. I'd be winning awards. There would be gala dinners in my honor. A big labor union would pay all my legal bills. I'd be interviewed by Peter Mansbridge. But not here. All the left-wing groups like the Canadian Civil Liberties Association and Canadian Journalists for Freedom of Expression, they're completely silent. I mean, take a look at Canadian Journalists for Freedom of Expression. Take a look at their website. They're all about fighting against the anti-terrorism law and supporting the admitted spy, Edward Snowden. They think that's freedom of expression? Supporting a Russian spy who stole documents from the US government? No word about actual Canadian journalists. Oh, and the Canadian Civil Liberties Association? Yeah, they've got bigger priorities, fighting for the right to use medical marijuana and fighting for child pornography. I'm not even kidding. Look, those groups don't really believe in freedom of speech unless it is useful at a particular moment for their left-wing agenda. I'm pleased to say that PEN Canada has said they'll look into my prosecution. I'll let you know if anything comes of that, but in the meantime, it's just the prosecutors of the Law Society against me. Well, against me and you. Could you please help me out? I really think the whole plan by these censors is to bankrupt me financially and waste my time. So I want to turn lemons into lemonade. I want to use this trial as a teachable moment for freedom, and instead of cowering and hiding from them, to turn things around, to keep a happy warrior attitude, and to make this the starter pistol for a new free speech fight back, just like I did when the Human Rights Commission came for me when I published the Danish cartoons of Mohammed. If we fight and win this one in a smart way, not only will I be free, but everyone else in Canada will be freer too. One more instrument of censorship will be defanged. Can you please visit standwithezra.ca and chip into my legal fund? $10, $100, whatever you can. I promise I'll fight as hard as I can. Jim Rooney will make sure I fight smart. And with your help, I really think we can win this one and shame the human rights censors for their latest attack on me. That's standwithezra.ca. And yeah, I'll say it again. Human rights commissions, they're crazy.